Lead Hope Navigator for the Department of Juvenile Justice, Jasmine Johnson, Office of Continuing Care Peer Specialist, Department of Children and Families, and of course, my wife, our First Lady, Casey DeSantis. We're excited to talk about ways that Florida is working to lift people up, expand opportunities, and really help people make the most of their own lives. But there's a couple things I'd like to say just before we get into that. One, look, these rankings come out all the time, and so sometimes it is what it is, but there was just a ranking of the best 5 cities in America to start a business. Of the 5, 4 of them are in Florida, including Tampa. So I think it was Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, Miami. I think Austin, Texas was 3rd, and then the others were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that just adds to all the other things that we've known. We're ranked number 1 in the economy of all 50 states the last 2 years by both CNBC and U.S. News and World Report. We're ranked number 1 in higher education. Since I've been governor, we have not allowed any tuition increases for our state universities. And so as a Florida resident, you're going to university if that's the path you want to take, and it's about $6,300. A lot of these places are charging $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for tuition private, but even the public universities are charging much more than that traditionally for in-state tuition. So that's something that we're proud of. But we've also are one of the top states. We weren't when I became governor. Now we're becoming one of the top states for workforce education. Not everyone needs to go to a 4-year brick and ivy university. There's a lot of great pathways to success. We've expanded manufacturing jobs in Florida since I've been governor by over 100,000 jobs, increased manufacturing businesses by over 30%, and we've got a lot of really strong industries like commercial space where folks who get good skills, there's places that people can use that type of stuff. So, people can choose what they want to do. It used to be they'd say you have to go to college or you can't be successful. Well, we know that's not true, that there's other ways that you can pursue. So we're proud of having done that. You also look at our state's fiscal. They're debating Washington, what to do on budget, and it seems it's like a debate between spending more and spending even more, having more debt or having even more debt than that. There's really no debate about actually reducing spending or lowering debt at all, deficits or debt, and so that's frustrating. That's not what we've done in Florida. If you look just on debt, take Florida's 180-year history, if you take all the debt that they've accumulated, which wasn't that much compared to other states, but still, just since I've been governor, we've retired 41% of that. And we accelerated the retirement of some of the debt that saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in interest costs that they would have had to have paid over the years. We are the lowest per capita debt in the entire country of all 50 states. So as a Florida resident, if they just parceled out what your share would be if we just charged everyone to retire it fully, I think it'd be like $400. Your share as a U.S. citizen with the 37 trillion would be $105,000 per person. So way different. Theirs is going up, ours is going down. You also look at tax burden, no income tax. We have at the state level, one of, if not the lowest tax burdens of any state in the country. Now, I've said that the focus of tax relief needs to be on where Floridians are feeling the pinch, which is not anything the state's doing. It's the property taxes of local government. That's what we need to be focusing on, giving relief for. And it's there's a philosophical element about, do you own your own home if you have to just keep paying taxes indefinitely to the government just for the purpose of privilege of using your own property? We typically wouldn't think that would be private property if you're always having to pay more just to be able to use it. Normally, you buy something, maybe they tax you, and then it's yours. You don't just have to keep paying taxes on it. So that philosophical point, I think a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute, I've been in this home. They're saying the home's value has gone up, and the home values have gone up because people have wanted to come to Florida. And I don't recruit anybody to come because we've got a lot of people And honestly, there's challenges when people come. So there's some governors, oh, please come to our state, please come to our state. I don't do that. In fact, I don't think I've gone, certainly since COVID, I've not gone around the U.S., asking for businesses to move either. A lot of them call us and ask about how saying they want to come to Florida. So, when you have population growth, when people are voting with their feet, that is a sign that we're doing things right. And there's benefits that come with that, but there's also challenges, infrastructure, you have challenges with education, all these different things. So I'm not one saying, oh, we need all these new folks, but the reality is you've had people come. Some people, you can leave California, and a typical home is probably, certainly when COVID started, was probably twice as expensive as the similar house in Florida. They can sell it, and then they can buy, probably a much bigger house for even less money than their home in California were. So you saw that happening over many years, and so property values went up. And so somebody may have had a home that they paid $250,000 for 15 years ago. Now all of a sudden someone's telling you it's worth $750,000 or $800,000, and your tax reflects that. Even with you have homestead, it's not enough to keep up. It's outdated, the amounts you get for homestead exemption. So that's been a huge issue, and so I'm very much supportive of obviously doing something on the ballot in 26, which is the only way you're going to finally be able to give people permanent relief. But even in the meantime, providing people with rebates off the taxes that they've already paid. I think it's really important. But certainly from what the state is doing, we're one of, if not the lowest tax state in the United States. I had this debate a year ago or so with the governor of California on Sean Hannity's show. And he was trying to say California had lower taxes than Florida. And I'm just thinking to myself, is there anybody on God's green earth that believes that? Because not only do they have, I think, the highest income tax in the country for a state, they have the highest sales tax in the state. So it's like we in Florida really rely on the sales tax. A lot of that is paid by tourists. They've done analysis in the past, about 18%, 20% is paid by tourists. But that was when we were having 84 million visitors. Last year we had 142 million visitors. So I think the more accurate number in terms of the amount of revenue the state takes in from tourists is probably 25% of the total sales tax, maybe even a third. And then you add to that the snowbirds who are not Florida residents, but who live here part-time. Some of the Canadians live here 3-4 months. You have people from other parts, they do that. They're also contributing to that. And so, and yet we have no income tax, and yet our sales tax is much lower than California's, and they have income tax and all this other stuff. So we've done really well in terms of tax at the state level. And since I've been governor, we've done billions and billions of dollars in tax relief that's been meaningful for people. And we will continue to support that. But that is really what you want. So, and yet with all that, we're still doing really big things for the state. We current year budget after my budget vetoes last June is a year-over-year reduction in spending by over 2%. We're spending less this fiscal year than we did the year before. Not many places are doing that. I mean, let's just be honest with how things are going. If you look at the amount of money that the government spends per capita, Florida is one of the lowest in the United States. Obviously, California and New York are a lot higher. California, they're finally having to acknowledge it may have been a mistake to have taxpayer health care for illegal aliens because you have people flooding there and getting free benefits. So now they're reevaluating that. But we've made better choices. So you have that, and of all the states, we have the lowest number of state bureaucrats per capita of all 50 states. So it's a small government, and yet, if you needed to get your driver's license, would you want to go to New York City to do that, or would you rather do it someplace in Florida? Obviously, I think you'd rather utilize the services here. Clearly, our roads are better, and our education is now much better in terms of the rankings on that. But we've done it very. But with all that, even reducing spending, lowering debt, cutting taxes, we've had record support for education, record for teacher salary increases. record for conservation and restoration of things like the Florida Everglades, record acceleration of road and infrastructure projects. Some of these things weren't even, we just did the temporary lane on I-4. If you guys go from here towards Orlando, you'll end up going, as you get into Polk County, you see these temporary lanes, and then we're going to do the whole thing in I-4. That's a brutal stretch of traffic. They were going to do it like next decade. I said, what good does that do if people are going? So we surged massive amounts of money to be able to do that. And it's important because it's quality of life issue. We've been very strong on law enforcement, record amounts of support. And look, the state law enforcement's a fraction. Most of what you have are municipal and county law enforcement. But we did the $5,000 recruitment bonus program that applies to all law enforcement agencies in the state. We did $1,000 bonuses. We've done a whole bunch of stuff that has been really, really meaningful. So we've really shown how it's done. And my message is we need to keep doing what we've been doing and build off that success. I think that's why the voters sent us here. I think that's why I got elected in 22 again. I think that's why the members of the legislature got elected. People realized that Florida has a successful model, and people wanted to see that. Obviously, do as good as you can, always make improvements, build off the success. But I don't think there's anyone that wants us to just see that that we're just going to go in some type of much different direction. So I'm proud of that success. I'm proud that we've led the way on that. Now, which brings us to today. Not every jurisdiction in the country can say what we've said about our economy, our education, our fiscal posture, our low debt, our low taxes. And so you have, and they're having to debate this with the federal government right now in the budget. You've got massive percentages of people in some parts of this country that are on public assistance. And there's a role if somebody really needs a hand up for temporary assistance, but to have this be something that is more done in perpetuity, it's certainly not going to be good for the folks who are on that assistance, because their horizons really dim if they are dependent on federal programs. But then it also is just the taxpayer's never going to be able to make that work, and you see the costs ballooning in some of these programs into the future, which brings us to here when we have the ability that I think the model that really represents the solution to a lot of the problems that are ailing other states and certainly the federal government, and that's the model of Hope Florida. And what Hope Florida did was not seek an appropriation, not demand all this, but just simply say, okay, we have folks in state government. Their job has been, with respect to child welfare and other related matters, their job's been to process benefits, try to get people hooked up with as many government benefits as possible, and that was kind of the silo they worked in. So someone would come, try to get them on benefits, and kind of keep going as that would go on. The problem with that is that's not really leading someone to a pathway to self-sufficiency and fulfillment. And particularly when you have folks, a lot of single moms that have children, it's more of a kind of stay in place rather than lift you up. And so Hope Florida's insight, and it was the First Lady's brainchild, was, okay, we have all these folks in state government doing this, but our resources, one, are finite, and two, this is not necessarily creating a pathway to self-sufficiency. Yet, Florida's blessed, and I think most places around the country are blessed. We've got so many great resources exterior to government in our communities. And that starts with the faith-based community. And there's some of these states that don't want to deal with the churches. They don't want to have any type of religious bent to anything that's going on. That's not how we view it in Florida. We welcome the participation of the faith-based community. In fact, we view it as essential to be able to fully allow people to realize their God-given potential. But you also have great charitable organizations. You have businesses that want to be involved in helping people in the community. You even have individual volunteers, and yet if you have somebody that's showing up at one of our state agencies that's not in great shape economically or has other problems, they don't know what resources are out there. They're going, and if they get put on a program, that's kind of it. And so what Hope Florida did was, one, get these folks together in the community. And so you have all these churches, you've got synagogues, you've got charities, you've got all these folks that are now a part of this mission. And then the people that are working in state government, instead of just processing benefits, your job is to be what is called a Hope Navigator, to help navigate the person in need to all the resources that are available exterior to government. And sometimes it may be someone needs a helping hand. Maybe they need a place to stay for a short period of time. Maybe their kids are hungry. Maybe they need help with education. Maybe they need help finding a job. There's a lot of different things. And Hope Florida, it's not like, people say, oh, well, this person went and they didn't get a full-time job immediately. Like, look, it's you're helping people find help. And there's been great success on that. There's also issues that are difficult, and sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. But the reality is you've got a lot of people throughout our state that are ready, willing, and able to help. They want to be part of the solution, and they just needed to basically, it's like, kind of put me in, coach, we're ready to go, so how do you do it? And so that's really what Hope Florida has been able to do. So this has been going on now for a couple years, and you've had tens of thousands of Floridians that no longer need some of these mean-tested welfare programs. And if you extrapolate in a very conservative estimate how much money that's saved, it's over $100 million a year that's saved the taxpayer. So not only are you providing the folks in need with a better pathway to self-sufficiency and you're expanding their horizons, you're also relieving burdens on the taxpayer to the tune of likely over $1 billion over a 10-year period. And just to put that in perspective, our state budget has been, anywhere from 113 to 118 billion over the last couple years. And so, that's a significant amount of money given. $1 billion over 10 years for the federal government, that they would consider that budget dust, right? They wouldn't even register on their radar. But here, that's something that's really, really significant. So you have the churches, and what they have is they use technology called Care Portal. So if somebody is in need, the needs go out to everyone connected in Care Portal. So you will get a notice at the church here that there may be someone in the community that needs help, and then you can go immediately fill that need. And we have churches in particular that are doing that, as well as charities that are doing that all the time. And so now you have over 5,000 nonprofits and charities that are signed up as part of the network. There's over 834 church response teams that are actively participating, over 9,000 individual church responders that are ready to help and step in. We have, or our Department of Children and Families, rather, has communicated with over 120,000 Floridians in need as a result of this initiative, and they've been able to do with resources that are exterior to government. 93% of all positions supporting Hope Florida were just simply repurposed with existing resources. This wasn't any type of big new spending program or any of that. It was repurposing. So I'm excited about being able to tell the story, being able to get more people throughout Florida involved, being able to help more people, but also pointing out that this is a model that could help problems throughout this country and even at the federal level, where you have some of these programs that are exploding. When folks are on those indefinitely, they clearly aren't going to end up really, really succeeding. And so let's look at ways to do it. Let's enlist the faith-based community. Let's enlist charities. Let's enlist individuals, businesses, the whole 9 yards to get the job done. We were able to announce recently expansions of Hope Florida to our 28 state colleges. So each state college is going to have a Hope Florida liaison. And you think about it, our state colleges have a diverse set of students. You got some people that are graduate from high school in Florida, go to a state college. You also have some people that are maybe in a transition period in their life. We have a lot of single moms that are trying to get more skills so that they can go in and provide for their families. And there are needs that arise with that. So having a liaison there is really, really critical to link that student in need with the resources that are available in the community. Hope Florida also announced the pilot expansion with the Department of Education to help children as well as parents of children in need in our K through 12 school system. If you have early intervention, you have a much better chance of solving these problems, and that's what you're doing. So it started off in Orange County, expanded to Lake County, and the department's now in the process of making sure there's a Hope liaison at all of our school districts who want to participate. We also announced that Hope Florida has expanded to include a liaison at all 67 Florida sheriff's offices across the state. Why is that important? Well, who comes into contact more with people that are having difficulties in their lives than law enforcement? And sometimes they may get called to a situation and see that, but honestly, they may be called to a different situation, maybe some apartment complex, and then they see other things there. So they're in a unique position to be able to offer help to folks who need it. So as these liaisons get activated, they're going to know someone's got substance abuse problems. There's a whole host of groups that are involved in helping advance the Hope Florida mission that focus on substance abuse or focus on helping mothers with young children. There's a whole host of things that can happen. So that's really, really good. Hope's also working with businesses to connect people who are looking for work, and some of that involves helping them get more skills. I mean, there are jobs available, but sometimes you need a certain skill set, and so getting people on that pathway. I know we highlighted someone in my state of the state where we did that, and that's great, and we're happy to do that. So we have Career Source, we have all these other things. So that's really utilizing and leveraging the resources in the community. Another way this model has been successful is on disaster response. So we had as you guys know, we had two major hurricanes last year. We had a third hurricane that didn't rate as a major, but was a Hurricane Debbie. And so there were needs that arise. And again, just like normal society, when we have major disaster events, there's a lot of people that want to be helpful. There's a lot of groups that want to come and be helpful. There's charities that are designed solely to assist in disaster response, ranging from food support, ranging from things that involve helping people repair their home, cleaning debris, all these different things. But people don't necessarily know where to turn. We would, and we still do, we would set up different things where people could go and basically be like a resource center, makeshift. But through Hope Florida, we created the Activate Hope provision of the Department of Emergency Management. And so all these groups, just like if you're in Brandon, you have this church, other churches, others that are helpful. When you have disaster, they're all plugged into the Hope Network and Activate Hope. So if someone goes to the Hope bus after disaster, well, maybe they need food, maybe they need shelter. It will go out, and folks will be referred in a much more efficient fashion. So I was pleased at the first round of that for last hurricane season. I'm hoping that we don't have to test it again this year. It'd be good to get a respite from that after having, we've had, you look through history, there are times, and we had 10 years where we didn't have a hurricane recently, but then now we've had 6 majors in the last 7 years. And that's not unusual how these things kind of come in bunches. So I'm hoping this bunch is done and that we have a nice runway where we don't have it. The other thing that's been helpful, so you have these groups, and Hope Florida is not a taxpayer funded thing where church is involved and they get on with the state and get money from the state. That's just not how it's been envisioned. It's been envisioned to save money for the state. Nevertheless, there are instances where organizations that are doing great work, deserve some support. And so in Florida government, some of the state agencies have what's called a direct support organization. So for example, our Department of Education has a direct support organization. It's a charity that can receive donations and then provide awards. And so Teacher of the Year, for example, the foundation does like a $50,000 award for that and stuff. And so there's good things that are happening. Our Department of Children and Families created, I think about a year and a half ago, a direct support organization to serve the DCF and Hope Florida mission. And so this foundation is a private charity. It can get private money, and then it issues grants to organizations that are fulfilling the Hope Florida mission. And so, there have been millions and millions of dollars that have been awarded through that entity to be able to help nonprofits, some churches, advance the mission of the Department of Children and Families and the Department of the Hope Florida Initiative. So that's leveraging everything at your disposal to try to be able to provide a network that can help people get on the great pathway, to help them find help, and ultimately to instill a sense of hope and purpose in people's lives. It's had great success. There's a lot more to do, and I'm just thankful that everybody here, I know that we've had great help from the church here, as well as many people throughout the Tampa Bay area, but we've got to keep on working to help people. It's really important that you do it. If you're able to do this, where you're linking people with these resources exterior to government, the results are going to be so much better than if it's just that traditional government silo. So thanks for everyone that's been involved. I'm going to turn it over to the First Lady, and then we'll hear from some of our panelists.
Great. Well, thank you, Governor Ron. Appreciate you and everything that you do to help support, a good initiative that's standing up for what's right. Jake Collins, a great friend. We've sat in our offices and talked for an hour about how great this initiative is and how much it's needed, really, of course, in the state of Florida, but really across the United States of America, particularly when you see some of the conversations going on in Washington. But as the governor really articulated very well, Hope Florida really is what the title says it is. It's providing hope. And it's just as simple as that. The hope to hang on for those who are suffering, to know that finding help is really only one phone call away. And think about that. It's just a central number that you can talk to a human, and then that human can help navigate you through all of the resources, making it very simple for somebody particularly who is suffering, because the last thing they want to do is have to parse through all of the available resources, in which we're blessed to have a lot, to try to figure out which door they go into to be able to get meaningful help. It also really represents one of the only meaningful reforms to the welfare state since the Great Society of the late 1960s. And it does so, as the governor has said, without growing government. It changes the tired orthodoxy that spending more money, just spending and spending, equates outcomes. It provides our elected leaders with a guiding light to see how government, in this instance, is uniquely positioned in a limited way to legitimately help people on a pathway to economic self-sufficiency. And as Ian mentioned, the success, we've seen it already. And we're even seeing more results coming in, but we've been able to transition off more than 30,000 people from government assistance, either partially or entirely. And as he mentioned, already realized about $100 million to the taxpayer in savings. But when you extrapolate that over 10 years, you're saving $1 billion. And that doesn't even really get into the preventative side of that. That's just realized in real time. Why is all of this possible? Because hope is being realized through the power of the communities, by harnessing the horsepower of the church, by giving the private sector a seat at the table, while leveraging the goodwill of the nonprofits, especially the little guys. In Florida, we have really proven that solutions are not found in silos, but collaborations fueled by compassion, by faith, and a common vision that's really rooted in hope. The federal government is spending, and we looked, about $2 trillion annually on means-tested welfare. A state-based Hope Florida model would go a really long way to reduce our really voluminous, unsustainable debt and deficit, while at the same time legitimately helping people, which is the ultimate goal. So for me, it's just really disheartening and very sad, but not surprising, to see these slanderous false accusations hurled at Hope Florida in an attempt really to undermine all of the meaningful progress that we've made on behalf of so many families across the state of Florida, and to undermine the tireless hard work of so many people who have answered the call to help. And when you talk to, I should say, Floridians all across the state, they don't care about someone's personal agenda. They don't care about somebody's political calculations, but they do care about trying to find a way to put food on the table, to keep the lights on, to keep their kids in school, to help them get an education, to live up to their God-given potential, to figure out how to get skills, to find a meaningful job, one they can be proud of, so that they can prove to themselves and their children that the American dream is alive and well and that hope will never die. So we are not going to waver on our commitment at all. We are not going to be dissuaded by the critics who have been captivated by willful ignorance. And we will not allow any petty politics to drown out the voices of families who have told us over and over for the first time they actually feel a sense of hope. Hope Florida is not a program. Hope Florida is a movement. It's about empowering the struggling to reclaim their purpose, to restore their dignity, and to realize their full potential. We will always stand on the side of those who are fighting, looking desperately for a better way. We will continue to defend the right of every individual to pursue a better life, to rise above their current circumstance, not because it's politically advantageous, but because it is the morally right thing to do. So in Florida, we're going to choose hope, and we will keep choosing it again and again and again, until every life that needs lifting gets the chance to rise. So I'm honored and privileged to be leading this fight, and like I always say, we'll be fighting it every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tina, go ahead.
Well, welcome everyone. Governor, First Lady, we are so honored here at Arise Church to be able to host you for this event. Hope. I love the word First Lady, and I love your partnership with the faith community and recognizing that we have the ability to be the hands and feet. That's why the church exists. We exist to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And this program allows us to reach deeper into the community than we would naturally. Many churches, and I'm not suggesting this is wrong, open their doors and say, come. And that's beautiful. We want you to come. At the exact same time, not everyone's going to walk in the door, and especially those who are struggling and vulnerable. And Hope Florida, through the vehicle of Care Portal, gives us that ability to step into the community and meet practical needs. I think of Jesus. He didn't tell people, oh, you're hungry. Great. Let me tell you about, no, he fed them. And then when their bellies were full, he was able to encourage them in different ways. And so Arise was introduced to Hope Florida and Care Portal through Daisy Stolte. She's sitting somewhere here in the room, a church ambassador with Care Portal. She introduced Care Portal to us, the Hope Florida program. We've been serving for the last year, just celebrated our 1-year anniversary under the leadership of Lisa Miller, our Director of Pastoral Care. And we've been able to serve 43 families in the last year. It's been amazing. And here's the thing, the families that come to us are often families that are either fostering in the middle of the night, they have to take in a child or their grandchildren. It's a vulnerable family who is at risk from losing their children until they reach a place of sustainability. And so we get to step in, and sometimes it's as simple as formula and diapers. And other times it's getting children up off the floor and building beds and buying beds and putting beds together. But the relationship doesn't end there. This is the beauty of the partnership of Hope Florida through Care Portal, is that we get to build a relationship with these individuals. We just had one of our team members actually on Easter out playing ball in the front yard with a family that they served 3 months ago. Why? Because they built a relationship with them. And so when they need community, and let's face it, who doesn't need community? We get to step in and be that community. So thank you for the program. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for letting us come alongside of you.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, Liz?
Hey there, good morning. Thank you for that. My name is Liz Phillips, and I have proudly been employed with the Department of Juvenile Justice since 2007. But before I begin, I do want to sincerely thank the First Lady. You are a walking inspiration to all of us doing this work every day, and we thank you so much. And of course, the Governor for your vision and your unwavering support of Hope, Florida. You know, when you've served in state government for a bit, you see programs go, you see systems shift, and the truth is that people needing help is nothing new, right? Like, that's not a new thing. Families have always struggled. Parents always have and always will worry about their children, right? Like, these are just the norms that are constant. What is different now, and what makes Hope Florida so pivotal, is that it's how we show up, right? It's how we are showing up to these situations that are not new to us. This is one of those moments that we talk about in government where policy meets purpose and something really strong takes root. Being a part of Hope Florida, for me, isn't an assignment, it isn't a job. It is truly an honor for me to be a part of what I do every single day. It is life-changing work, and I am so very proud to stand alongside the other Hope navigators like Jasmine around the state. They show up every single day with heart and grit, and they're ready to serve our families. And the First Lady touched on this, but Hope Florida has truly set in motion a shift from silo service delivery to genuine collaboration amongst agencies. And I don't know, when I say that, it's mind-blowing, because as a state employee who's been here for so many years, this is something that we don't see, and we're actually seeing it every single day. When a family comes in and they've exceeded my expertise, you know, I don't know how further to help them when they're coming in with some disabilities, or if they're a veteran. I don't know that lingo and that language well. So historically, I would worry, you know, where am I sending them off to? I don't know where they're going. But now I can pick up the phone, I can call a Hope navigator at that agency who does have they are the subject matter experts, and I don't hand them off. It is truly a team approach. We work together, and that family the entire time knows they're supported, they are surrounded with cheerleaders, and we still understand their needs. So that entire time they know what they've got surrounding them, and that never, ever, ever wavers. At DJJ, you know, mentoring has been a long-standing thing. It's something that anybody who says mentoring is wrong, nobody would ever say that, because mentoring holds so many positive things for youth and families alike. But what's really exciting about Hope Florida is that we've taken the youth mentoring kind of to another level, in the sense that it's not just about that child, right? We recognize that there is a family sitting there that needs that wraparound support, that needs that, they need a mentor too. And so we're tapping into those resources to say, hey, who can we find to provide that encouragement, that guidance? It's about wrapping around that whole family and offering relationships that provide that stability, that accountability, and hope. We say that word so much, but it's so true. You know, I can't imagine in my life being so desolate or without that I don't have at least a glimmer of hope. But we're finding people who are hopeless, and we are going to fix this. Hope Florida is helping to build these bridges, linking youth and families to role models who can just not tell them what they're doing wrong, right? But to show them, hey, you're not alone, and let's walk together as we get there. Not every impact that we do is going to show up neatly in a report or a referral source. It's just the truth. Some of the most meaningful work we do happens in those moments that can't be measured. Like having a parent trust us when they're feeling the most overwhelmed they've ever felt. the belief of someone who is, that belief that grows in your belly that says, you know what, I can do this. I can take a new path even though I'm scared to death. As I was driving in this morning, I was talking with a dear friend who oversees Hope Florida at APD, and she was telling me about one of her navigators who lives in Tampa. And this navigator was working with an individual on, you know, on those boxes that we can check. Did we help find some housing stability? Yes. But if I said that to you, you would say, wow, that's great. But this man who doesn't trust, and it's taken him a long time, his truck broke down and he was stranded. He picked up the phone and he called his navigator. It was in the middle of the night. The navigator took the call. Her husband and her got in their car, drove to where Paul was, and helped him. They helped him with his truck and they sat with him. Do you understand what that took for him to reach out, and the first person he thought to call was his Hope navigator? That can never be measured in any report, right? But that shows the heart work, you know, and so for the Gingers out there, we see you. We see the work that you're doing and the love that you're pouring out to make those connections. And so across the state, navigators are helping people reclaim that, you know, that stability, that confidence. These aren't always the kinds of wins that fit into a spreadsheet, but they are the kind that can really change the trajectory of someone's life, and often what stops them from going down into a deeper level of involvement with systems of care, right? So what makes Hope Florida different is that it reflects what the very best of government can be, which is compassion, responsiveness, and just being human. This isn't about systems. It truly, like the First Lady says so eloquently all the time, it's about people helping people. And by placing the individual and not the institution at the center of our work, we're proving that there is a better way and it is possible. I'm grateful for this movement. I tell you, every day I wake up and I am so proud to be a navigator. I'm proud to stand alongside the other navigators across this state who go above and beyond. I wish you could just walk with us and see what they do every day. It is life altering, not just for the Floridians and families we're dedicated for, but for us as humans. They do this not for the recognition, but they truly believe in the people that they serve. So thank you again, First Lady and Governor, for believing in this model and for giving us the space to do what we do. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Mike Cooper, Dream Center of Lakeland.
Governor, it's so good to be here today. I want to first of all thank you from my wife. We go to Disney pretty regular, and you turn an hour and 5-minute trip into about a 38, 39 minute trip. So I don't know if Disney. I don't know if Disney's thanked you, but they should. You know. But really, what I want to talk about very quickly today, the Dream Center of Lakeland is really, you know, a blessed place, because one of our main goals is how do we equip faith-based. We have over 60 churches that partner with us, Episcopal, Presbyterian, and Methodist, and God, you know, just across the board. And but the second one, which is one that's very important to us, is how do we embrace our city? How do we love Lakeland? And I was called to go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, because a church up there wanted to start a Dream Center very similar to our model. And after meeting with their city governor, their mayor, which is a strong mayor system there, the police department, we found out that you couldn't put a Dream Center like we have there because the city would not embrace them. And what Hope Now is, what I've noticed, is that we get a call one day, can you come to Arbondale, like a day before, can you come to Arbondale, maybe the First Lady? And I grabbed my wife and I said, well, I don't know what it's about, but we're going to go over to Arbondale. And we went over to Arbondale, and that day they presented a check to the Dream Center. They vetted us. And listen to this, they embraced us. When you fill out a grant to get money to do a nonprofit organization, usually in the first 3 or 4 questions is, are you a nonprofit 501(c)(3)? The next one is, are you faith-based? And that will usually bump you out of the grant right there, because for whatever reason they look at faith-based as not being the resource that it really is. This governor and First Lady have understood that. Let me tell you, since we got that $10,000 check, I got 2 calls from the governor's office following up on what we have spent the money for. That very seldom ever happens. I get a call one day from the governor's office about we have a need in Highlands County. Well, we're Polk County. Pastor Mike, do you know anybody in Highlands County? We were very short there in some resources and connectors. And I gave them a name of 3 or 4 churches. That said to me that they don't sit in an office and go, look, here's our statistics, we're fine with our statistics. They saw where they were lacking, and they took the initiative. Now, I want you to hear that. They took the initiative. And as a nonprofit, we feel embraced by our government. And that's very key to where we are. I was saying about this the other day because we got a call, it's been a month or so ago, from the governor's office about what the money's going for. And I said, so how's it reaching children? We do a lot of things for kids. We're in 5 schools every week, you know, with kids. We bus, you know, in just 2 weeks, we will bus 350 kids to a Western town where they come for a full day camp, a Western theme. And, you know, these are all at-risk kids. And as I'm talking to this individual from the office, I said, oh, and we have a 18 to 35-year-old basketball league. Now, everybody that goes, well, how does that affect children? Do you realize in that 18 to 35-year-old basketball league, a lot of those men will have 2, 3 children that they absolutely have no contact with? Do you know what you do for a man when he goes and he mentions in passing that he has a daughter that has a birthday this week and he has no contact with that daughter, and you go upstairs and you go through all your toys and you give him a toy and he gives it to him and you tell him to take it to his daughter? That connection. Now, granted, I will tell you this. Thank you, Governor, First Lady, for embracing us and for embracing all over the state, because it makes a difference. There's hands out there that most governments do not engage, and you guys have done a great job. You know, I'm sure you dropped the ball in places. We've dropped the ball in places, but when you see that, you're willing to deal with that. So I want to personally thank you, but really for I-4 too. So yeah. Appreciate that.
Well, on I-4, the best is yet to come, but we're glad that we were able to do that 8 months ahead of schedule.
And
So
we'll take it, yeah.
if it was in some of these other states, it would gotten done sometime in, you know, probably 8 years. So, okay, Jasmine Johnson, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Johnson. I'm grateful to be here in Brandon, Florida this morning. Before I share a bit about myself and the work that I do, I want to sincerely thank both Governor DeSantis and First Lady Casey DeSantis for their pro-family approach to leadership and for the opportunity to speak today about a topic so close to my heart. So thank you so much. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Panama City, but I live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I serve as a Hope Navigator for the Department of Children and Families Office of Continuing Care. In 2021, Governor DeSantis, you signed legislation creating the Office of Continuing Care, and through that, positions like mine were established to offer peer-to-peer support to young adults who have aged out of foster care. This work is close to my heart because I've lived that same experience. I turned 18 and aged out of foster care not long ago, and now I have the opportunity to help others who are just a few steps behind me in their journey. And as a Hope Navigator, I meet young adults right where they are, helping them navigate real-life challenges and connecting them to resources that can stabilize and empower them. That includes housing, job training, educational opportunities, and mentorship. Because I've walked that same road, I'm able to build trust with the young adults that I work with. And I know what it feels like to feel uncertain about what comes next. And I work to make sure that no young adult that I work with ever has to feel that again. When I aged out, I was fortunate to have a support team around me that encouraged me to pursue higher education, that helped me with housing, and encouraged me to step into meaningful employment like the position I hold now. But I also know that not everyone has that same support, and many of the young adults that I serve are facing immediate needs, a need for stable housing, a job, and a need for direction. And in those moments, I step in as a navigator to stabilize the situation and walk alongside them towards long-term success. And it makes a difference when they have a trusted adult that not only listens to them, but they show up and they follow through and they stick with them. And that's what I do, and that's what Hope Florida does. And to give you a little example about some of the cases that I have, there was a young adult that I had as a case who reached out because even before they had aged out, he was homeless. Was living in a car, was working a job, and not really having that support he needed to find the resources that he needed and that he was eligible for to be more stable. And so I was able to get him connected to his CBC, where he was eligible for all of the services, and he got housing. He was able to obtain a tuition waiver, and he's doing well in college now. So when I help these young adults, I stand in the slips of the cracks to help them from slipping further and bring them back up to where they need to be. So Hope Florida isn't just a program, it's a lifeline for people I serve, and giving them hope, help, and trust that things will work out for them even at a critical time in their life. Hope Florida is a game changer for these youth, and I see the difference that it makes every day. And honestly, had I had something like this, I know it's 2021, I was at the cusp of being eligible for Hope Florida OCC services, but now that I work for them, I'm able to connect those young adults to those services. But if I had that, it would be a great safeguard for me, and I'm glad that it's a safeguard for the young adults after me. So thank you, First Lady, for your vision and ensuring navigators like me can be there for Florida's youth when they need it the most. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Well, thanks, everybody. We really appreciate all the hard work. We've got a lot more to do, and we will be working very hard to do that. I also just want to remind some folks that we in Florida have led on a lot of issues. I mean, there's been some stuff about what we've done on illegal immigration, leading the country to help the federal government there. But one of the things that we've done is looked at Washington, and you see what goes on, particularly with the Congress, and the results are, habitually poor, certainly over the last couple decades. And so it's my judgment that you're not going to get radically different results just by electing a few more good people, that the incentive structure there is so skewed that it's just not going to produce the type of results that I think we all want to see. And so two of the things that the legislature in Florida has certified for constitutional reforms, constitutional amendments, are a balanced budget requirement for the federal government and term limits for members of Congress. And so I've been active. I was just meeting with the Ohio legislature yesterday. They're on the cusp of doing the term limits. They have done the balanced budget amendment. We've also I've met with people from Montana, Idaho, you name it, about balanced budget. And so we have the ability as states to propose these amendments, just like Congress can propose amendments. Either way, 3/4 of the states have to ratify any amendment. So the ratification is the same regardless. But I think our founding fathers knew you had to empower the states to offer changes, because when the changes affect what's going on in the nation's capital, those Congress folks may not want to do the things that need to be done. So I know that they've tried to do a balanced budget amendment through Congress in the past, came up one vote short in the late 90s. Just imagine if that had passed 25, 26 years ago, our country's trajectory would be totally different perhaps. They definitely want nothing to do with term limits, I know that. But it's also something that most people want to see. So you're now, I think 27, 28, 29 states have done the balanced budget. You need 34 to allow the states to write one and propose one for ratification. And then the term limits has just started within the last really few years in earnest. And this has been something I've been involved with in a long time. So there's already 12 states just in a few years. I think you're going to see a few more relatively quickly. And as that builds support and it gets more traction, there's going to be a lot of people in the public that are going to want to see that. So sometimes we're proud of what we've done in Florida. We think we've shown a model to have good results and good governance. But I think a lot of people are frustrated, particularly with Congress. I mean, it's just been very difficult in that institution in recent years. Well, we do have the ability to do something about it. And you don't just have to sit there and throw something at the TV. I mean, you can do something. And so I'm using whatever role I have to be able to help that process go forward. But I really believe, I mean, if you could do term limits for Congress, a balanced budget requirement for feds, and then I would say the president should have line item veto authority like I do as governor. You know, they do these massive omnibus bills. President's got to either sign it or veto it. If you could go and line item out pork, that'd be a huge, huge positive thing. So those would be the three that I think would just change the incentives. And if the incentives are better, then I think the behavior and the results would likely improve. As it is now, the incentive structure is to kind of keep doing what they've been doing, you know, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And by and large, it's not been terribly successful. So I'm proud that Florida has led on those issues. I know there's a lot of support across the country for both of those. And I think we've got to just continue to really press forward on it. So we'll do whatever we can in Florida to help that. And man, if we could get that done, I think that would be a huge, huge positive for the United States. Okay, do we have any questions?
Governor, are you going to accept the invitation to speak at the property tax committee?
I didn't see it. No, I'm not going to go sit in front of a committee. That's not the role of the chief executive. We have been talking about property taxes for many, many months. In fact, last year we were talking about how people's property taxes were going up because of the values. I've talked about getting relief now. I've made series of proposals. We also want to get something on the ballot. It doesn't take a committee hearing to do that. It just requires leadership. And so we want to see that out of the legislature. And it's interesting because, you know, remember when I called the special session for immigration, the response was, oh, we in the House legislate, the governor doesn't legislate, right? And so they didn't want to do it. Now they're saying, well, it's the governor's responsibility to tell us what you can pick one, right? It's got to be one or the other. So, look, I hope that I'm skeptical, and I've told people I'm skeptical publicly when everyone's been clamoring for property tax relief. I mean, if you talk to Floridians, it's like 90% will talk about property tax. Now, if you tell them, hey, do you want to get something on some other, I mean, they'll say fine, but like no one is like organically clamoring to do 1/4 of a penny sales tax that honestly benefits the tourists and stuff, which we shouldn't be doing. I want more tax burden to be on the tourists and the snowbirds and less on Floridians. I think that's the best, and we're the unique state to be able to make that happen because we have so many visitors and we're the place to be. So you do, but people have been really, really interested in property tax relief, and I think most people know because they've heard me say this many times. The property taxes are leveled locally. The state does direct some, but it's a relatively modest. I think we can still do a rebate for people this year and get the rebate in their hands. You know, some people in the legislature said giving people a rebate on their property tax is like a Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom welfare handout. Are you kidding me? These are taxpayers that are paying taxes, you know, on their property taxes. So I didn't agree with that at all, and I don't think most people did. But ultimately, because the power constitutionally for property taxation is vested in local governments, we need to do a ballot measure to be able to provide you with constitutional protection to own your own home. And I'm just very, very supportive of that. I hope that the House will pledge to put something strong up to be on the ballot. I think the Senate has said they want to do it. I know Senator Collins is helping lead that. We've got a number of senators, whether it's Senator Martin, Ingolia, Senator Collins, that have really worked hard, and we want to get this done. And it's not easy to get 60% in a referendum, you know, as we've seen. But I think it's something that is worthwhile and that needs to be done. So we've been talking about this ad nauseum. I think the issue is you know, my proposals about property tax relief now were basically rejected by one of the chambers. And so I think that was a mistake. I don't think that it's over. I think, you know, they haven't done a budget yet. They haven't done any tax yet, even though the session ended a week or two ago. So I think you may be able to still land the plane, but you ask people, what do they want relief on? They want relief on property taxes. We have the unique situation in Florida to do something really, really bold, given that we have 142 million visitors a year and all these snowbirds, that we can do it in a way that'll be meaningful for Floridians, but also, is not going to be, I don't think insurmountable to be able to continue to do the basic services that everybody wants. So that's the goal.
Well, you've been the First Lady. We know you're concerned you're running for governor. There was reports stating in Miami Herald that maybe that's not going to happen. Can you set us straight on where you're thinking right now?
Yeah, sure, for sure. Well, I think first of all, the focus should be on actually passing a budget, right? I think that that's really important. That's what I think a lot of people signed up to do by a certain time. I would say I understand why when I travel around the state and I meet with a lot of people, why they're very concerned when this guy, the GOAT, is no longer in office. I get it. I mean, I tell you what, he laid it out at the top. I mean, just going over our economic numbers, paying down 41% of our outstanding debt. We have the largest net in migration. We have more new business formation than any other state in the United States of America. I mean, people are moving here because they love Florida. And they love this guy. They love what he's done for parents and standing up for parental rights in education, for making education #1 across the state, whether it's K through 12 or whether it's higher education. They appreciate what this guy has done when it comes to our environment. I mean, paying billions of dollars to invest in water quality, to restore our Everglades, to leave the state of Florida better to God than we found it. And so you also look at public safety, 50-year crime low. People know when they move to the state of Florida, and again, he's not inviting people to move to the state of Florida, but they are coming, that they know that their families are going to be safe, and that they're going to be protected, and he's going to do everything he can to back the blue and to make sure that we're giving bonuses to people who are putting their lives on the line. So I get why this is a big conversation, but I will also say it's more than a year away from qualifying. I mean, I think we need to be thinking about what the people put people into office to do to try to make sure that they're delivering on the promises that they told the people they were going to do when they first got elected. So I think there's a lot of time to think about it, but I definitely understand why people want to see the GOAT, someone who stands up like the GOAT. And I didn't even mention this, too. So you think about all of the accomplishments that the governor has done, right? And it's unparalleled across the United States of America. I mean, he's the best for a reason. But I'll tell you one thing that I've had the privilege to watch from behind the scenes is that guy has a backbone of steel. You can say all of these things, right? You can go out and you can have your talking points, but if you do not have the courage of your convictions to stand up and fight for them like he did during COVID, I mean, the entire world descended upon this guy. And I watched from behind the scenes. He was like a steely-eyed missile man every day of the week fighting for you. To keep the state open, to get our kids in school, to make sure that you weren't smothered by a mask or had a mandate to take a COVID mRNA jab contingent upon you keeping your job. But I saw him every day of the week fight like hell for this state. And I think whoever he ultimately decides that should be following after him should be somebody that I think, and obviously up to the people of the state of Florida, but I think it should should be somebody in the mold of a DeSantis who's willing to get out there and fight.
And also, and as we were doing the fights with COVID, I mean, it was publications, quite frankly, like the Miami Herald, that was concocting hoaxes. I mean, they accused our Department of Health of fabricating COVID data. That was a lie. That was a hoax. That was made up. That was fiction. And that was put out there for many, many weeks and months with zero supporting evidence for it, just simply to try to discredit the fact that we had the state open and free. And so I'd be very skeptical of discredited outlets in terms of what they're doing, because you remember that hoax. You remember the book ban hoax. Oh, Florida's banning book. What book has been banned? Well, no, but this. Okay, so you're removing a pornographic book from 3rd grade? That's not banning the book, that's just common sense. So that was a hoax. Don't Say Gay was a hoax. When you were talking about Disney, I thought he was going to say thanks for standing up against the insanity a few years ago. But I mean, it was a hoax, right? It was a total fabrication. And so these are things that they just kind of run with, and with some of the legacy outlets. But it's like, man, it's just constant, and that's just what they do. So I just think it's important to remember all that, because people look back and say, thank God our kids were in school during COVID. Thank God our businesses were open. Thank God all this happened. But you know, the people that were fighting tooth and nail against that were all these organs of the left, some of these legacy media publications, obviously the teacher union suing me to try to force the closure of schools. We shouldn't forget that. You should never forget who was on your side and who was fighting for the bad guys. And they were fighting for the bad guys. That's just a fact. The ACA settlement that they did was appropriate, legally sound, and advanced the core policies of the state of Florida. They did a good job negotiating it. They did a good job across the board. And the reality is, no one would say anything about this if it wasn't for some people have an agenda. Some people want to try to obliquely hit the First Lady, even though she wasn't involved in the ACA thing. They want to try to do that. They want to try to cast aspersions. They want to discredit a successful program. Maybe it conflicts with their vision. Maybe it's something that they view as inconvenient because it's a success. So, that was political. I think that the agency handled it well, and clearly, what they did was appropriate and legally sound, and that's been demonstrated, I think, very clearly. But do you think that the money should have gone to the need? It did, though. It did. I mean, anything that has gone goes to fulfill the Hope Florida mission. That's just the reality. Now, that's done separately from the state. It's done through a board of directors. There's applications, but all the things that have been done, and I think the foundation has a 99% grant rate. 1% is overhead. When you talk about these things, it's usually people are somehow making money. Like, no one's made a penny off this thing. There's no one that's been employed or given anything. It's all been done to grants to fulfill the mission. And so that's appropriate, and there's more to do in that regard, because some of these groups, this isn't necessarily sexy stuff to do, right? I mean, there's other things that some people would maybe prefer, but this is something that's all very important. And so I think that those missions were furthered in important ways, and that's just the reality. And I understand there's people that have political agendas. I understand there's people that have access to grind, but we got to be clear. You had some of these publications saying that ACA took money out of a Medicaid fund and did it. No, it was a private settlement. It was a settlement dollar, private settlement. So all this stuff that gets put out there, so much of it is intentionally fraudulent and contrived, and I think this is a good example of that. This has been a great initiative. It's changed people's lives for the better, and the state needs to continue on this pathway. This is the way that you break down barriers and you lift people up.
And Governor, is that a response to State Rep Karen Gonzalez-Pittman, who had some concerns when it comes to the foundation and the way it manages?
Karen Gonzalez-Pittman took propaganda that was done by far left Democrats. She rebranded it and was passing it out. That is a fraud. That is a hoax. And when she's doing this stuff, she is basically adopting left-wing conspiracy theories. Just to try to damage Hope Florida, to try to hit me obliquely, to try to hit our Attorney General, to try to hit the First Lady. I think Karen Gonzalez-Pittman has done a poor job as the representative from South Tampa. Jackie Toledo got a lot done when she was in there, and I know there are many other people who were interested in running for that and who did run for it and came very close, and I know there's others that are going to be looking to do it but I think what she was doing was highly irresponsible, and I think it's unfortunate, but ultimately people reveal their true colors, right? I mean, when you have this and you look at it and you see that's not what you campaigned on, but if you're going to do that. So I know there's a lot of people that have been very disappointed in her for her conduct, and they should be.
Governor, do you think the president should accept the blame from Qatar?
So I think that the president's first term policy towards the Middle East was the most successful that we've seen. I think it was very clear-eyed about the threats from the Middle East, whether it was Iran, and in fact, I think he acknowledged and was very clear about past behavior for Qatar. And I think Qatar, they play a double game. They are involved in funding some very, very dangerous causes. I know they've been involved in terrorism. They spend a lot of money in the United States. I mean, billions and billions of dollars flowing through our universities. And I don't think, now we've cracked down on that in Florida. We did our foreign influence where that's much more difficult to do, if not impossible, in Florida now. But I think the foreign influence on universities is a really big problem. And so I just hope that that is the policy that emerges. I think this trip will tell. I haven't been able to follow everything that's going on, but we know Iran is the biggest problem in the region. We know Israel is our strongest ally in the region. We know the Abraham Accords helped shift more and more countries towards the U.S. and Israel's position and against Iran. And I think that that's what you need to build off of. I would not advise doing any type of quote, deal with Iran that allows them to get a nuclear weapon. I think Barack Obama tried that, it failed. I think that Joe Biden tried it, it failed. So be very clear-eyed. He did a great job in the first term, and I think that if he can just simply replicate that going forward, I think that would be a big success for the country. But I do think Qatar's influence, they have spent a lot of money in this country, and I think that that's something that people should take notice of. Okay, guys, thanks so much.